These dry, non-eucalypt woodlands, chenopod shrublands and saltbush mallee communities are characteristic of the Australian rangelands. Those inland areas of 350mm or less average annual rainfall. Large areas of these communities have been cleared for cropping in southeastern Australia. In Victoria, rangelands still extend over 250,000 hectares of both public and private land. Of this area, 100,000 hectares is non-eucalypt woodland. This is now a depleted community nationally. Rangelands are to be found within the major Victorian mallee national parks: Wyperfeld, Hatter-Culkine and Murray Sunset. Most of this area was only declared as National Park in 1991 and is under the management of Parks Victoria. Rangelands also remain on Ned's Corner Station, managed by Trust for Nature, and in State Forest, managed by Department of Sustainability and Environment. Our rangelands have a long legacy of stock grazing prior to being managed for conservation, and they have been severely degraded by high rabbit populations over the past 140 years. Grazing and rabbit browsing in particular has prevented the regeneration of woody perennials for most of this period. Even larger stems are not immune from rabbits during dry periods. These images were taken in the northwest corner of what is now Murray Sunset National Park, just before the park was declared in 1991. The degraded condition of these pastoral leases led the Land Conservation Council to change the public land use to conservation. The long-term restoration of these landscapes is now the responsibility of Parks Victoria and our partners, the Department of Sustainability and Environment, the Mallee Catchment Management Authority and Trust for Nature. This lunette in the Pine Plains addition to Wyperfeld shows the loss of tree cover that has occurred without replacement, leading to major erosion of the dune. There has been no regeneration of the slender cypress pine overstory at Pine Plains for 140 years. Since destocking, the primary management task has been broadacre rabbit control. Initially, agricultural tractors were used for warren ripping. But with an average of 2 large warrens to the hectare, bigger machinery was required. The Caterpillar Challenger was up to the task with its rubber tracks and long tines. It could rip more deeply. The Caterpillar Challenger travelled at speeds of up to 30 kilometres per hour and was able to rip tens of thousands of warrens in the newly declared Murray Sunset and Wyperfeld National Parks. Another legacy of the grazing era has been the network of dams that filled from catchment drains. Even after destocking, these dams supported large numbers of goats and kangaroos. Fencing of some dams was trialled as a possible means of preserving them and allowing access for birds. Consideration through the park management planning process determined that the dams needed to be closed if rangeland recovery was to proceed. Fencing of dams proved to be an unsatisfactory option on animal welfare grounds. The dams also supported feral animal populations. Following a public consultation process, approximately 100 catchment dams across the Mallee Parks have been filled, although a few remote dams remain due to their inaccessibility, and a few have been kept in a modified form for their historic value. The fauna of the Victorian rangelands has suffered long-term decline as a consequence of habitat loss. Some species are now restricted to the dry woodlands that remain in good condition, such as the Urara Flora and Fauna Reserve. Major Mitchell cockatoos nest almost exclusively in slender cypress pine in the Mallee. The breeding colony at Pine Plains is the largest known from Victoria. After destocking, a surge in kangaroo abundance resulted from the reduced competition and the modified woodland habitat. This phenomenon was first observed at Hatter Kulkyne, where stock grazing ceased in 1977. At the level of kangaroo browsing observed in 1990, there was no prospect of rangeland recovery. An independent planning process was conducted and kangaroo management implemented at Hatter Kulkyne from 1992. Kangaroo management was later extended to other areas of the Mallee Parks that had been destocked. Total grazing pressure was being progressively reduced across the Victorian rangelands during the 1990s through a combination of kangaroo management and rabbit control. This process was helped immeasurably by the arrival of the rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus, otherwise known as RCD. This new biocontrol triggered a regeneration response of bull oak and acacias at Hatter Kulkyne. The bull oak regeneration, although limited in extent, is highly significant as it is the first recorded for the area since the 1950s. There has also been widespread regeneration of slender cypress pine in the Wyperfeld area, and of sugarwood and cattlebush in the northwest of Murray Sunset. The Blue Bush Plains are recovering from more than a century of sheep grazing. The landscape is much improved since the 1990s, with the lunetted pine plains now stabilised by widespread pine regeneration. Unfortunately, it will be many years before these trees are large enough for major Mitchell cockatoo nest hollows. Areas of Hatter Kulkyne that were denuded in the early 1990s have responded to the reduction in total grazing pressure. There was no prospect of tree regeneration in the Cantala block of Hatter Kulkyne in 1992. There is now a lot more biomass, but still only limited tree regeneration. The understory in the Taparoo area consisted largely of annual weeds in 1992. Perennial native grasses and chenopod shrubs now predominate. The Murray River floodplain has suffered from a lack of flooding over the past decade, but there is evidence of recovery in the dry woodlands. The saline discharge area of Rocket Lake was relatively bare in 1992. It now supports a dense chenopod shrubland. The process of rangeland recovery still has a long way to go. Rabbit populations have inevitably become more resistant to RCD. The Victorian government has increased investment in conventional rabbit control through the Mallee Woodlands Bouncing Back initiative. This program has ensured that thousands of woody seedlings have been protected from increasing rabbit abundance. Tree decline proceeds apace because of the advanced age of the overstory. For those areas where the overstory has been completely lost, active reseeding will be needed. Weed competition is an ongoing issue, particularly from the pervasive Ward's weed in the northwest of Murray Sunset. The future of the Victorian rangelands and their endemic fauna remains in the balance. It will require an ongoing commitment. But the initial investment is now starting to pay dividends. In many cases, that investment was just in time.